Thank you for joining us today to discuss why sales doesn't use your content and what you can do about it. We've designed the session to be very tactical, and so we look forward to giving you tips that you can start using now, but probably more likely when you're back from FutureM. We'll also hold a Q&A session at the end of today's presentation where we'll answer any outstanding questions that you may have about sales enablement and getting sales to use your content. We'll take these questions live here and also through Twitter. So if you want to submit anything using the hashtag that you can see on the screen here of content enablement, go ahead and do that as they come up throughout the presentation, and we'll go through them at the end. So with the housekeeping out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. And before we get to the introduction of who I am and who these guys are and why we're all here today, I just want to first address the key question, which is, why are you sitting here? Why are we all here today? And I suppose if you're like us, you've also experienced a disconnect between your sales and marketing. And the problem is when this disconnect occurs, it's unfair to you, first of all, and all the hard work you're doing creating the content and using it to attract prospects and buyers. But it's also unfair to your sales team, who's out there on the front lines. They're talking to these buyers every day, and they're trying to nurture them along. But in the end, this whole experience is actually really unfair to the buyer as well. In the new world in which we operate, marketing's out front, generating these leads at the top of the funnel, using content and other inbound marketing tactics to get prospects to raise their hand and self-identify. And then when this prospect is entered as a lead, at some point sales will follow up with them. And this is where the disconnect begins, and this is where the experience for the buyer can turn bad. The buyer has been self-educating, and some estimates say that they're 70% along in the buying process by the time a salesperson engages with them. And so they've shown interest in your company in one way or the other, maybe by downloading a white paper or attending a webinar, pretty early stage stuff. And what happens after this typically, if you're anything like us and like me and what I've experienced before, is sales is going to push for their end goal, whatever it is they're measured on. It might be a demo. It might be trying to close right away. This story should sound familiar. So we're here today to discuss this sweet spot that exists between marketers, salespeople, and buyers. As the marketing landscape shifts further to content-based lead generation, this problem is going to show up more and more, and will continue to do so as content marketing is further adopted. This is why the alignment with you, your sales team, and the buyer is critical to the future of marketing. And let me just make some really quick notes here. We'll use a term during this presentation, the term sales and salespeople, to encompass anybody who's a salesperson, an account manager, or a client-facing. And so also our presentation is very focused on B2B. There will be tactics in here that are B2C friendly as well, but our experience aligns with that well, and this is typically because of content marketing where you're going to encounter it most. So to discuss the topic at today's hand, we've assembled a team of marketers who have seen this problem unfold in their organizations. Everyone up here has been there. They found effective paths out. They found effective ways to engage their sales team and actually get them to use their content. And we're here today to discuss and answer any questions about effective sales enablement. I'm Sean Lavana. I'm Vice President of Marketing at Postwire. At Postwire, I lead all marketing, thought leadership, and user engagement activities. But aside from that, I really love discussing marketing and how you can use it and creative strategies to improve your initiatives. With me today, I have Alexis Carlin. Alexis is Digital Marketing Manager at Percussion. Alexis is a B2B marketing pro who brings her high-quality experience to the table at Percussion to help drive qualified leads for the sales team. Also with me today is Susan Molota-Zenek. She's the Senior Marketing Manager of Demand Generation at Forrester Research. Susan is the enthusiastic leader of account-based marketing initiatives at Forrester, where she created and operationalizes programs that expand client business. And so we touched on this a bit in the first slide, but let's dive into why is it a problem if sales doesn't use your content? And the short answer is that you spend a lot of time investigating your audience, tailoring your messaging, and composing all of this content. On your own, or at least within your department, you can use this to generate leads at the top of the funnel. But with all this investment, you don't want it to dead end there. It's not good for you. As we discussed, it's also not good for your sales team, and it's not good for the lead who accessed this content and expects to hear more about their specific problem and ultimately, later on, how your company has a solution to solve it. But it's not uncommon for marketers to bring in leads with a specific campaign slant. And what happens after this, like we touched on, is salespeople generally will follow up with a broad-based messaging that'll push towards their end goal. And this is the disconnect between marketing and sales. And while it's bad for those two departments, it's even worse for prospects who are doing their own searching. And this is because it can be really tough to find relevant information out there on the internet. As they're searching, as they're self-educating, they're going to struggle to find your content. If they come across one, they download your white paper, they attend a webinar, they start to engage early stage, you want to nurture them with similar content until they're ready to have a further discussion. And it's tough for us to do that on our own, but it's easier when they're engaged with a salesperson who actually knows about them and can customize this. And that's the crux of the problem, is this overwhelming amount of content that nobody can find. Google's chairman Eric Schmidt summed it up by saying that every 2 days now, more content is created than what existed in the history of man up until 2003. So think about all those videos, all those white papers, all those blog posts, all those tweets, all those LinkedIn messages that you're doing. All of this is an incredible amount of content, and it's really tough for anybody to plow through. And judging by Forrester research findings, they've cited recently that 80% of B2B marketing companies are planning to use, are currently using, or continue to expand their use of content marketing in the form of white papers, videos, infographics, and recorded webinars. The amount of content that's out there is only going to continue to grow. And just like Forrester cited, this is coming in many forms. All this content is coming in many different ways right now. And as a result, it's stored in a lot of different areas. YouTube, shared drives, Dropbox, Google Drive, your corporate website, the intranet, your LinkedIn page. All this content across all these areas is tough to keep track of for us as the marketers. And if you're not sure where everything is, if you can't find the most recent white paper, for example, how does your sales team ever even stand a shot? And this is just the baseline. This is just letting them know where the content exists, where it's stored. The next big step is actually enabling them to effectively use it, which is giving them context with the content and empowering them to share it with prospects so they receive content that is most relevant to them. And if you can do this well, you'll have great sales and marketing alignment. If you can give them the content in one place, if you can share with them the context of what it's about and why it might work for leads, you'll have the alignment with your sales team that you're seeking and that you're hopefully here today to hear about. And you'll be on the way to generating more revenue, too. As HubSpot research cites, companies with good sales and marketing alignment generate 20% more revenue than those who are not well aligned. And that's what we're here today to teach. We're here today to tell you how you can use content to better train and align with your sales team and buyers. And so with this in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Alexis Carlin, who will discuss how to solve the problem of having too much content that is not sales enabled.
I think this is working. Okay, super. So I know that I'm preaching to the choir when it comes to content marketing, so I'm not going to tell you typical things that every marketer tells you when it comes to content marketing. What I'm here to do today is to give you some tactical suggestions of what's worked at Percussion and how we've worked with our sales team. To start, it's important to think about building your content over time. Don't think of it as, I'm going to produce 20 blog posts and 40 leads are going to appear out of nowhere and voila, I've killed the quarter. It's going to be awesome. It doesn't work that way. You know it and I know it. So to start with, you want to start thinking of your content on a rotating plan. So think of it as weekly or daily blog posts, monthly ebooks, data sheets, infographics, and quarterly white papers. And always save room for one piece of emergency content. Why? Because you're a sales team. Sales team is going to last minute say, oh my God, you should write about this. So you always have to save room for that emergency piece of content. Don't get me wrong, I love sales. I think they're fabulous and I work with them every day and they're really outstanding people and they do come to you with amazing ideas. But you always just have to prepare for that amazing last minute idea that happens on a pretty regular basis. So basically what you need to do is once you've outlined when you're going to produce your content, you need to think about basically the fact that you need to come up with a content audit. So take all of the content you produced And then think about your content and which personas and buyers it maps to and which part of the buyer cycle. So what we did at Percussion was we created a spreadsheet. And in the spreadsheet, the top part of the spreadsheet was all of our sales cycle. So every single point of our sales cycle. And down the left-hand column, we had all the different types of personas. Then we took that content audit and threw them into the little buckets, saying exactly where they matched perfectly. And then one thing that was really key is we sat with sales, showed that map to them and said, where do you think the holes are? We are able to know where the holes are from what we put here, but where do you think the holes are yourself? Tell us. Also, tell us what content you think would be beneficial to you to fill those gaps. So you'll notice a trend here. Talking to your sales team is very important. Bringing them in the beginning, starting to plan with them is very essential. If you're interested in having that content map as an outline, let me know. Tweet me at @Carlin. I'm happy to share that with you at any point. It was very beneficial to us in the long run to have that, so I hope it's beneficial to you. The main point I want to drive home that it's important to actively engage with sales. So how do you do this? Meet with them weekly. I know meetings are a pain, but meeting with them weekly is very beneficial. One thing that I've done that I hate, but I love, is an open portion at the end of every sales meeting for questions, comments, or concerns. You're going to hear stuff you don't want to hear, but it's very beneficial to know exactly what they're thinking at all different times. One of my mentors recommended to me the way you can engage with sales and understand what they're talking about is if you hear it once, think about it. If you hear it the second time, that's when you have to start processing what you're going to do about it. And then if you hear it the third time, that's when you actually engage and take action on that item. So it's very essential to do that within that process. So since I've talked about that, I'm going to pass it over to Sean, and he's going to talk about personas.
Thanks, Alexis. So as Alexis was saying, we have this plan now, right? And we need to keep building on it. So how do we divide that up so that we can get sales' buy-in and also get their help in developing it? Because as Alexis was pointing out, that's the critical part of this. You need to have that constant communication with them. It makes your job way easier if you have their buy-in at each stage, and even better if they're actually helping you develop it. So you can start by agreeing on who you're targeting, right? And that's basically your buyer persona. And that's who the person or the person-like of who is going to buy your company's products or services. And I'm going to walk through an exercise very quickly here. This does come with the guidance that there's probably going to be more than one persona that your organization will have to cater to. If you encounter different types of people with different roles during the buying cycle, that's a different persona most likely. And so you will probably have to do this exercise a couple of times depending on how many personas you have. But let's go ahead and dive in and walk through a very easy way to do this. So when you're developing a persona, you want to start with the basics. You as a marketer have a lot of information in the analytics of your website and in your marketing system. This can help answer a lot of high-level basic questions like what are people using to access the site, how are they finding it, what are they searching for, and what are they doing once they get there. You can use this information and more to identify and follow tracer bullets, a kind of term that I use that shows something that's repetitive and interesting. If there's something in there that seems like a thread, pull at it and see if it's helping you go down a path where you're aligning better with this ideal persona. Get some of these ideas down as you're pulling at these threads. Get them down. Share them with your sales team. Does it look like we cater first off to a VP of marketing at a tech company, right? And get their feedback and take into account and then refine at a very, very high level what you're thinking here. And so after the basics, you have a rough image of this person. They're starting to take shape. It's time to get a little bit more detailed. So you know broadly now who the target is, and you need to dig in now a little bit by finding the answers to these questions, which are, what problems does the persona commonly have? What pushes them to solve these problems? Where will they access the information? Where will they look for the information when they're trying to solve it? How will they access it? And what types of information are they seeking? Do they start really high level, or are they somebody that's like an engineer and is going to want something much more detailed? And so when you answer as many of these questions, and hopefully more as possible, it'll start to give you a more clear picture of who this persona is. And again, validate this with the people at your company, particularly sales and those who are customer facing, And you can also, if you're far enough along as a company, validate this with your current client portfolio. So now we have the detailed information, and what we need to do next is validate it, which is actually pretty easy. All you have to do to validate this stuff is typically just ask, test it out. Find as many people within this persona that you're starting to craft as possible, and look for consistencies. Does the solution that you put forth solve a problem for them? Would they look for solutions to this problem? Where would they do it? Where do they generally hang out online? Are there things like Mashable or TechCrunch that they're going to cater to, that they're going to go to often? Are there groups like FutureM or MyTex? What do they look for when they seek out recommendations from their peers or from other social influences? And again, answering these questions will help you spiral towards the center of your ideal persona. And that's when we can get to the final part, which is actually building this and then obviously continuing to iterate and improve on it. You're going to use all this information that you gathered to put together this fictional person. And this person is going to be an aggregation of all the problems you've uncovered, where this person seeks solutions, who has influence on them, what motivates them, and all that other additional information comes into play. Use this to help set a content roadmap and tailor your content. So when you have this persona, what are they looking for? Where are they looking for it? How can you speak to the problems that they have, and where can you find them? And doing this doing this with the buy-in of sales will actually give you their assistance at each stage. And as a result, both parts of your company, the sales, the marketing team, maybe account managers and other client-facing people, will know who you're targeting. And they'll know what you're doing when you're doing it. So you develop this piece of content, here's why you developed it. And it will also help give them a better idea of how to use this content in the sales cycle. And so now we have this persona. We have this plan that Alexis talked about. We have the persona we're catering to. We even have the buy-in from our sales team. The question becomes, how are we going to keep them up to date? And we joked in the abstract for this event that the classic line is, where's that brochure? And that's because even though you're now a content marketing rock star, you're creating all these new ebooks, these blogs, these white papers, all of this content that you're putting out there, if you're not enabling your sales team to easily locate, personalize, and share this information, they're going to continue to use the same old stuff, which is that brochure that you really don't want to update yet again. And so we want to prevent that. And so Alexis is going to talk about how you can better enable them and stop hearing the same refrains.
Okay, perfect. So I think of sales as pretty transactional, or what I like to call shiny object syndrome. So it's really easy for them to lose sight of the amount of content you produce, what you produce, when you produce it, and who it's produced for. So one thing that we've done, one of the things that I've seen as a problem is sales will turn to you and say, I have a really great idea for an asset. I think you should do X, Y, Z. And then all of a sudden you go, yeah, that exists. We have it. Don't worry about it. So one thing that we've done that works really well is we took a huge whiteboard and put it up against the wall where sales is on the phone all day and mapped out every single asset that we have. So we said, here are all our data sheets, here are all our white papers, here are infographics. And the things that we added to it that have helped them along the way is what part of the buyer cycle that it hits, what personas that would be interested in that asset, and then where they can find it. It sounds pretty straightforward, but it's really helped with them with their solution selling. So when they're on the phone and someone says, SEO, I don't get SEO, help me, they can look at the board, say, here's the SEO asset, and then email it to that person. So that's really been helpful in the long run. We also know that sales job is really tough. That's why we're marketers. We don't want to be in sales. So it's important to remember that there's no I in team when it comes to thinking of your sales team. So you have to remember to openly communicate them. Send them content you create via email with a note to us why that content is relevant, who it's relevant for, how they can use it, and how they can share it via social media. This is interesting, and I do this every single week. I actually write the tweet for sales. I know it seems like we're spoon feeding them, but it'll actually get them to engage on social media. If you write the tweet for them, include the bit.ly URL, and then they can just copy and paste it and put it into LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. It just makes it a little bit easier for them. Another thing that I found really helpful is to create a Google Drive document. And in that Google Drive document, you can actually share your content plan. And another thing I do is use Trello. Anybody in here use Trello? Yes, go marketers. So Trello is awesome because you can put up basically what is in your pipeline, what you're going to be working on, what's next on the docket, what you're working on right now, and what's done. So sales can see on a regular basis exactly where I am in my marketing stage. And we have a new team member, so it's really helpful for them to know what she's doing as well. And she's producing all the content, so they know exactly when that content is coming out. So next, Sean is going to come up and talk. Sorry.
Smooth transitions. So actually what I'm here to talk about is I want to build on Alexis's point and about the consolidation of your content. Because one of the most common problems I see in improving the sales and marketing alignment is this, which is that marketing is creating. We've beat this to death now. We're creating tons of content, right? You guys all know this. And it's in a lot of forms. And so as we've discussed, this content is typically housed in a lot of different areas. So oftentimes, the uniting force that we come up with is creating a spreadsheet, right? And good, we start this with great intentions, and it's a really good idea. We're going to put all of our content in a spreadsheet. We're going to map it out to the stages or the personas or however you decide to organize it. It's going to have the links in there so sales knows where to click and access it. And we'll keep this up to date, we swear. But soon we realize that our job as marketers, we're really busy, right? There's always something to respond to. There's always a fire to put out. And so what falls by the wayside but updating this spreadsheet? So as we're out there doing this demand generation side of things, and we're finding the prospects, we're developing the content they need, we're putting it in the ad channels that they need to see it, that'll get them to raise their hands, and then we're probably nurturing them afterwards, and we're basically spoon-feeding sales the leads. What we really kind of stop doing is making sure sales knows where this content is. And so what happens when while we start this with great intentions, what happens as a result is this information, what I call the information death spiral, begins. So you're not updating the spreadsheet, which means even if sales was going to access it, they're not now. And so everything kind of becomes out of date. The spreadsheet falls out by the wayside. The content that's contained within it is probably old and maybe in a new location, might have a different link now. So what do you do? And this is where it's important to involve sales in the plan as well. So they know who you're targeting with your content, and then also where you're heading with your content development, just like Alexis talked about. You need to execute on this as accurately as you can and keep it up to date. This helps build the trust of your sales team and will make it for an easier working relationship. But the key here is actually giving them, as the slide says, context around the content. Why did you develop this content? Who is it targeting? What might prospects do with it? Why would they access it? Where in the sales process is this piece beneficial? What are the key points with it? You need to keep all this updated in one place, and that's kind of where the spreadsheet starts to fall by the wayside. So that your sales team knows where to find this stuff. They can personalize it for the buyer, for whatever buyer they're talking to at that moment. They can share it all, and this all happens from the same location. You're organizing it, they're accessing it, they're sharing it all in one spot. Strange. Sorry, I didn't mean to have that slide in there. Alexis is up next.
Our transitions are working fabulous. So, like I talked about earlier, sales jobs is tough, and that's why you're there as a marketer to help them. So one of the things that, everybody talks about, and I can't drive home enough, is that there's no I in team. You all work for the same exact organization. You're trying to each reach the end goal of revenue. So think of your sales process as transactional, and work close with your sales team. The more open you're with them and they are with you, the better you're going to align. I actually sit right next to sales. I hear them on the phones all day. I actually hop on sales phone calls. I join demos. it's a very outstanding experience to really be in the whole process and actually be able to see a lead when it comes in, where it's going, and how you can help throughout the process. So the more open you are with them, the more open they'll be with you. And just remember, be consistent. Rinse, lather, and repeat. So try and do the same thing over and over again, because it's going to be more helpful in the long run if you just keep doing what you're doing. Once you found out that it works, don't keep doing the bad things. So now Sean's going to talk about SWOT analysis and how that can help with sales.
Thanks, Alexis. Actually, what you were just talking about brings to mind a great quote, which I think it was Richard Nixon that said, "When you said something 9 times, they're just starting to hear you." So kind of keep heart while you're going through all this. So the SWOT analysis, most likely we should, I'm guessing most people in this remember a SWOT analysis from their college days, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to your organization. We could have another session entirely on whether what we learned in college marketing is useful and applicable to what we do every day, but I actually find this one to be very useful, but the way I use it is a little bit different. I use this as a little bit of a subversive way to closely align with my sales team. And the reason I do that is I'll compose this analysis after surveying them, and I use this as a building block in a sales feedback loop. And so what I do is I pose questions to the sales team, and I send a survey by email so that I can help prevent groupthink, so that what happens when you go into the sales meetings and you're like, hey, how was that piece of content? You're going to get the same response from everybody, and typically stuff can turn negative quickly if that's the way it heads. So what I do is I send the survey by email, and then I get their answers back, and it helps me kind of craft this SWOT analysis. You could call it like a SWOT content analysis even. And the reason I call it that is it's very helpful as a basis for a content development path. So when you get the user responses back, you'll know what your content strengths are, where are we strong, that they're using stuff a lot. What weaknesses do we have that we're not addressing that need to be worked on? What opportunities is sales seeing out there in the front lines that we're not exploiting? And what competitors might be closing in on that we might not be aware of because they just heard it from a prospect today? So let me walk through the questions that I send out. Here's kind of the typical way I'll set it up. Why do clients choose us? What are the most common questions you are asked during the sales process? What objections do you hear? Why do prospects choose competitors, and who do they choose? Are you noticing any trends you feel that we as a company are not reacting to? And finally, if you could have anything in the world right now from the marketing department that you feel would help us increase your lead to close ratio, what would it be and why? So they're telling you where are we falling short on, and they're advocating for what you need to do to help that. And so not only does this give you great insight and feedback, but it's also effectively, as we discussed at the end, a SWOT analysis that helps you identify where you're lacking right now, where your weaknesses are, and what else you might need to do to help them out. And this really helps you closely align with sales by identifying these gaps. They feel like they're being heard. You can be transparent afterwards with a content plan, how you're going to tackle this, where you're going to go with it. So even if it takes time, even if you're a small department, you can give them the insight into where you're heading with it and why. And it's showing them that you're generally interested in their feedback. And so once you do that, you're going to have to be regimented, though. When you are transparent with this, to build their trust, you are actually going to have to continue to knock out the deadlines you hit, which can be tough. Other good tips as you're aligning with them, as Alexis cites, make sure you sit on at least some of the sales team's meetings. This helps you kind of, one, as we know in marketing, control the message and give the feedback and get the feedback that you need that's critical. Listen to calls, as Alexis cited occasionally. You're going to hear those questions directly from a prospect unfiltered. And even attend those meetings if possible. If they're in person or on a call, attend their meetings with prospects every now and again. And talk to as many customers as you can. Don't let them or the account management get in the way. Talk to them. They're going to give you great feedback. They're going to tell you what their evolving roles are within the organization, what new challenges they're encountering, and even the solutions that they're evaluating to accomplish those. And that's all really good information for you to distill and then put back out. And so Alexis is going to wrap up right now, and then we'll have Susan step up as well. She's been quietly sitting here waiting her turn.
So we've talked about a million things, and we've thrown a bunch of different words at you like Trello, Google Drive. So here's 4 things that you can do when you get back to your desk. So the most essential thing is to start with a plan. outline exactly when you want to do it and how you want to do it. Develop your buyer personas, because you can't really act on content and help the sales team if you don't know who you're talking to. I know buyer personas is the hottest thing right now. There's so much content out there, but I would definitely do very deep research on buyer personas, because once we got that nailed down, we were able to produce content to specific people at specific points in time. And this third point should be actually encompassing all of them. Keep sales up to date. Talk to them regularly, email them a million times. One thing that I love to do, and sales hates, is in the subject line of my emails, I actually put free food, and they open the emails. It's awesome. You can't do it too many times, but think of catchy subject lines like Halloween's coming up, spooktacular would be a cool idea. It's a good way to get them to open your emails, because they get bombarded with emails all the time. You want to just, get them excited, get them engaged. And the next thing is set up a feedback loop. As Sean talked about, polls are a good idea, questionnaires are a good idea, have open meetings, do whiteboarding sessions. If you have any other fun, suggestive, creative ways about how you go about doing this, I would love to hear them. Tweet me at @acarlin. And thank you for your time. We appreciate it, and we're going to pass it off to Susan.
Oops. Ooh, I can hear myself. Great, thanks, Alexis. Okay, so I'd like to share with you a bit of a case study on how to organize marketing content to drive sales success. It was great to hear some best practices from Sean and Alexis, and over the next 10 minutes or so, I'd like to share how Forrester is improving sales' use of marketing content. This is still a work in progress for us. When I'm done, it would be exciting to hear how you all are making some headway on this initiative too. So how many people here are familiar with Forrester? Okay, mostly everyone, that's great. I just want to make sure we all understand the inner workings of Forrester's business, so I'm going to do a high-level overview because it informs how we manage our marketing content. Our mission is to help you make better decisions in a world where technology is radically changing your customers. And to support this better decision-making, Forrester produces content as our foundational product offering. But then we also produce marketing content about our product. All right, so let's look at the people who are involved in this exchange. We have 2,400 client companies worldwide, and to support those clients, we have 1,200 individuals across geographies. More than 400 are quota-carrying sales reps, and some of these folks are selling to new business as well as supporting individual clients. And slightly over 50 are marketers, and this does include our PR team. Okay. So what are Forrester's products? Well, basically, our core product is research and interactive tools for solving marketing technology and strategy problems. Our more comprehensive client solutions build on this in the form of data sets, executive peer groups, and further analyst engagement. You heard Sean and Alexis emphasize the importance of roles and personas. We couldn't agree more, and in fact, one of the major ways Forrester sells our solutions and organizes content is by persona. So our research analysts craft their research and advisory work specifically to answer the challenges faced by individuals in these jobs. And likewise, our sales organization seeks out people in these roles as their customers. Our content management strategy for sales is outside in, which means understanding what our end customers need outside and then constructing an ecosystem to provide that to sales inside our organization. To accomplish this, we focus on making our marketing content for sales relevant, contextual, and just in time, because that's how we believe our end customers want to interact with us also. To provide this relevant, contextual, and just in time end customer experience, We have an internal content architecture that enables us to curate marketing assets for sales in one primary location, which is a specific sub-site within our intranet, and then we promote those assets to sales through other internal channels. I'll share a few examples of the relevant, contextual, and just-in-time resources that sales has at their disposal. Okay, so first of all, we maintain PowerPoint libraries on the internet where there are presentation shells and component assets. The shells you see here are segmented to support account expansion, new business, and also sales stages. The asset libraries are divided by the role that the salesperson is selling to and what products they are pitching. These decks are comprehensive and can be mixed and matched to create the right level of customization for any prospect or client. We also have a sales coach within our CRM system that suggests marketing content that is contextual to the specific opportunity stage. This is available to any sales rep with a click of a button. Notice that the Give and Tools and Templates sections where sales can link to the supporting assets enable their conversations with sales at whatever sales stage they happen to be at. Finally, marketing content is introduced to sales over a period of weeks. This is to new sales reps, not all at once when they first join the company. They initially interact with marketing's content in the course of an online training curriculum. And then next, they attend a face-to-face training where sales practices pitching using marketing's content. All of sales' training is assigned in a deliberate sequence, and the completion is tracked by management. It's worth noting that we also strive to decrease the friction in delivering great marketing content to our end customer by making marketing content available in an up-to-date, visual, and mix-and-match way. This way, sales can easily pick what's relevant for their accounts and get it in front of them immediately. One tactic that seems to help increase sales' use of marketing content is having it consistently in one place, as Alexis and Sean mentioned, though it may be linked to from many different places. So we reference the same content from our sales coach, within our CRM system and other places, and also utilizing our Postwire account pages. So what's the result of all this? In the comparison on this slide, we measured our open rates for client emails that were sent by both marketing and sales during a 6-month period. When marketing and sales work together to reach out with a tailored message that utilized marketing content, we saw 3 times the engagement measured by our unique click-to-open rate versus generic messages that were independently sent by either marketing or sales. So to summarize, sales will use your marketing content when you think outside in about what your clients and prospects need and then create it. Align it in a mix and match way based on sales stage personas or other sales-friendly segmentation at your company. Make it relevant, contextual, and just in time. And make it available in the location of sales use. At this point, I'd like to open up the floor for any questions that you may have for the 3 of us. And we do have a microphone available that our colleague Abhishek will have roaming around. And so just raise your hand and he'll come over and you can ask your question. Thanks a lot.
Hi, I was just wondering, a lot of the stuff that you've mentioned, a lot of the processes and tips seem to fall in line with the use of marketing automation software. Do either of you, or do any of you use any software like Marketo or HubSpot, or have you incorporated it in the past? And how does that compare to sort of the processes that you're putting forth now? Are you doing this stuff more manually in terms of how you're organizing content, lining it up with different stages and different topics, or are you using software to do that?
So I can jump in here first, and then probably all of us actually have a good answer to that. Let me first mention, if you want the slides from today, you can go to go.postwire.com/FutureM, and you'll be able to access those there. We also have some additional supporting information, some blog posts that you might find interesting, and we'll be keeping it up to date. So if you actually sign up, you'll get an email notification every time we update something there. To answer your question, we'll go down the line here because I think we all do actually use marketing automation software. We use HubSpot currently, but not heavily. And the reason I say that is we actually are firm believers that what we try to accomplish as marketers by abstracting all this information, so this person hit this page or this person downloaded this white paper, and then trying to target them based on that can be a little bit tough. And so the reason we kind of take the approach we do is we would rather empower our sales team to be able to have that content, for example, that Susan talks about and easy access to it, so that we can get them in early, which there's been data out there that shows that buyers do actually want to talk to salespeople early in the process, but only if they're providing educational value at that point. If they're helping challenge their idea, for example, or if they're guiding them through something that's pretty complicated. So if you can get them in early, we want them to use our content and use that to nurture, as opposed to me saying, you're a VP of marketing from a Fortune 500 company, you must want this white paper, right? I'd rather have somebody that has a little bit, my personal preference is I'd rather have somebody that has a little bit more intelligence behind it, that can feel them out a little bit more. But we do make light use of automation as well. So.
Hi. So we use Eloqua for marketing automation. And we do a lot of lead scoring. We segment a fair amount of our lists once we send those out. We send email campaigns. Another tool we use is pretty outstanding tool, but probably not that legal right now. Leadlander. It's a very interesting tool that you embed a cookie, you embed JavaScript on your website. It picks up cookies based on IP address, and when someone fills out a form on your website, you can actually track what they're doing. A good part about that is we can actually look at search terms and what people are searching and finding our content on and then downloading our content. And our sales team lives by Leadlander. I would definitely recommend checking Leadlander, LeadLander.com. It's a really great tool.
Totally legal in the US, by the way.
Legal in the US.
EU, you're a little.
Just don't go to Germany.
We use Eloqua, and I would say we use it mainly right now for developing prospects versus actually communicating with our existing clients. However, I think there's great opportunity for us to deliver customized messages to our various role personas based on what they're interested in, what we can see of their digital fingerprints. There's great opportunity for us to use it more.
So today's marketing scape is very content driven. We've been talking about that for 2 days now. Online, it's technical. What tactics would you suggest for sales reps that are, say, technologically disadvantaged, that have a hard time with the whole concept of it? And so just explaining to them that they really need to be doing this, but they can't seem to get themselves out there?
I think Alexis made some great points about spoon feeding them. That might be good here if you want to elaborate a little bit.
So I do this presentation at the beginning of every sales year called Stacking with Style, Social Stocking with Style. And basically, what I like to talk about is showing them exactly the results of what content marketing drives for them. So when you see that, show them the results and show them how actually it works, they're going to be more interested in it. And if you walk them through, like literally walk them through, here's how you set up your Twitter profile, here's how you do your picture. It's really helpful for them to get interested in it. And then if you show them how to use like search.twitter.com, and if you show them how much content your competitors are producing, that's really going to help them in the long run. And if you send them weekly emails with those tweets, you know, even like 140 characters or less about what that asset is about, it's going to get them more into it. And then when you actually alert them and say, hey, XYZ downloaded that asset and it resulted in that sale, then they're going to be more interested. And you still have to put your ear to the ground and alert them, say XYZ tweeted about content management systems, you should respond to them now. But the more you show them the results, the more beneficial in the long run it's going to be.
And I think I'd add to that, you know, it's one of those topics that until it's relevant to you, people don't care, right? It's like until it starts to affect your world or until it has a either positive or negative effect, they're not, you know, it's tough to do. So one of the things that Alexis mentioned, even with Leadlander, for example, when those reports come out via email every morning, and they see that somebody from IBM, and hey, they're working with IBM, hit the website, that's kind of interesting. One of the things that we have on our platform is that when somebody hits the page of content that you created, it generates an email to the person who owns that page, typically the salesperson, and they'll be able to know that this person specifically hit that page, and here's the content they accessed. And when it has that positive effect on them and they can see what it's doing, I think there's definitely going to be a better adoption of it. And you see a lot of companies now, like HubSpot, releasing signals that's trying to better enable sales teams to kind of sift through all that information that's out there on the social channels. And so if they can find the prospect that they're trying to reach and they can connect with them on Twitter, on LinkedIn, wherever, it's going to bolster their experience and their take on all of this as well.
One thing I'd like to add on this is we have kind of a configurator of sorts where our sales reps are able to see, like based on the phrases they're hearing of executive pain points or different, things that come up over and over again in their phone conversations or emails with prospects, we decode that for them and map it to specific solutions we have that address those pain points. So it's kind of perhaps an automated way of solving the problem, but it does kind of decrease sales' discomfort when they might feel like they're a little bit over their head. They can just go to this tool and see what's recommended for that situation.
There's a question in front of you.
Leads without spooking out the customer. I know you looked at this page and this page, so you must be, like, how do you just happen to call them the day after they looked at 10 of your pages? Or, like, how does that work?
It really depends on each situation. So if we have, a deal sitting in the pipeline and you know that they're sitting in a meeting where they're making that decision and you know that they're on the website, that's when it's okay to follow up. But if it's really early in the funnel where it's just awareness, we kind of stay away from them. We don't, get on top of them and say, hey, I saw you on our website. We try not to creep them out. I like to call it the dating rule. You wait 24 hours before you call them, just because you don't want to scare them. But it's very situational. And I think one of the other things, and this is kind of irrelevant to is IT sales, is turn your cold call into a warm call. Learn more about them before you get on the phone and say, I saw you looking up XYZ about us. It just makes it a little bit easier. So communicating that with your sales team and giving them a tool and saying, have fun, stalk everybody, it's a little bit easier.
Any other questions? Is there one over there?
I just wanted to suggest another tool, and it's called Brandfolder. I'm actually from a startup company in Boulder, Colorado, and we have a tight-knit little startup community. So there's another one called Brandfolder, and they just started. They pretty much single-handedly saved my life during a product launch. So if you guys want to visually show your assets somewhere, especially for sales, because it can be made private as well. So it's been a huge help for me. So check it out.
So unless there's anything else, we want to make sure, thank you all for coming today. If you want to access the slides and the information, you can go to that website, and we'll keep that updated as well. Thank you all very much.